We recorded. Awesome. Very warm welcome to everyone attending the second cybersecurity space virtual event in 2025, and the second event in general, because we just started a few months ago to put the meetings and the virtual events on the agenda of the cybersecurity space. I'm very happy to have Edwin with me. I'm representing three leaders of the leader team of Tobias, Dibs, and me today, because the others aren't available, but I think we can deal with this. So I'm very, very happy to have Edwin on the call today, who will lead the presentation. Have around, let's say, 45 to 50 minutes of presentation, and I will be in the background today, so I'll be monitoring the chat, answering some questions, acting as a kind of moderator. So in case you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat. I will interrupt Edwin whenever I want, and maybe we can clarify the questions afterwards that I can answer as well. At the end of the event, as you might know from last time, there will be a Q&A session. So I think Edwin will join the Q&A as well. And I would like to get some feedback on the event, because we are planning on letting the community decide on which topics we will hop on for the other events. So I think we plan another meeting this year in 2025, another virtual event. So in case you have any kind of recommendations, speakers or topics you'd like to talk about, just feel free to reach out anytime, or just use the Q&A session afterwards. Because as you guys know, this is a community event, and this is the community we like to participate, and the community should be able to decide on the topics. So just feel free to reach out. Enjoy the meeting, and Edwin, the stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucas. So, as you know, this session will be recorded.
Yeah.
Edwin Reitema, I'm the EMEA field CTO for EMEA. Been with Veeam for almost 9 years now. Always been in the security space for that one. Been an explorer for 30 plus years. Other people call it a hacker. I like to explore. So don't give me extra buttons I could press and don't have a clue about. I will just test them. On the other hand, I'm also a translator between business and technical and vice versa, because those areas are normally, the people in both areas want to have the same thing, but it's kind of the language that's like blocking it. So that's why I'm doing the translation. So behind the shield, how Veeam security first approach protects your data. This is one of those hidden gems within Veeam. We spend millions of dollars to protect Veeam and our products and make sure that you have an error-free, a malware-free, or any backdoor-free solution you're running. So let's zoom in for that, because that has a reason. We're all part of a supply chain, right? So if you have a supply chain, you have people to the left, you have people to the right, and everyone always thinks if there's a bridge coming in, it comes through the front door. So from the internet, someone clicks a link, and there we go. No, normally it could be, but it can also be that one of the shackle partners in your chain does something, and all of a sudden you will see that start spreading through that whole chain. So it didn't come through that internet connection. While we even rip out that internet connection, the damage is still being like cascading down. And those cascading failures, that is because we're in a highly connected environment. Vulnerabilities in one system can quickly propagate to the others, right? Leading to cascading failures across industries and geographics. Because those supply chains are not just small shackles, they are big now. And those supply chain vulnerabilities, that's also why we spend so much money and time and effort in making sure that we are safe as Veeam, and also our products are safe. So how does Veeam help out? And I picked one of those slides. I'm normally used for like compliance reasons and for like DORA. So ICT risk management. Veeam, resilience by design. Use the 3-to-1 rule, making sure that you have immutable in play there, making sure that you see anything, see all and know all. That's about like using like Veeam 1, but also having that threat dashboard there. And by having insights into what's happening, that makes it a lot easier. But also having those recovery options. As soon as something happens, we will run through. And I got a question like yesterday during an executive roundtable in Frankfurt. It's like, yeah, what's the difference between like cybersecurity and data resilience? Cybersecurity is about trying to get them, those bad people, the threat actors, the hackers, out of the system. So investing in firewalls, investing in intrusion detection, making sure that they don't breach the outer perimeter there. But data resilience is more about, okay, we will know. It is not about if, it's not about when, it's about how many times will you be breached. And it doesn't always have to end in like a ransomware note. Can be anything. Can be a small breach, can be a big breach, but doesn't have to go into ransomware at all. But by having that and having data resilience, that means, okay, if something is coming in, something is wrecked, you want to have a data set that's clean and that's usable again. That's where data resilience really comes in. And that's also the difference between like cybersecurity and data resilience. Data resilience is like the foundation for a lot of compliance laws and regulations out there now because they all ask about resiliency, right? This is about DORA, Digital Operational Resilience Act, but you also have like the NIS2 and some others worldwide. And that's about resilience, being able to bounce back and, as we say, bounce forward. ICT incident reporting by having like threat intelligence and minimize downtime. And minimize downtime, that's also why we bought, for instance, Copeware in 2024. An incident response party. They're not doing backup and recovery as what we did, or backup replication, as I have to say. But by having that control over the whole chain of events, makes it a lot easier to come back and be resilient. So threat intelligence and about who is attacking, if you do pay, or that's the only option you have because the rest isn't working, so you cannot do the recovery from the backup. You're not able to rebuild your data. You cannot say goodbye to data. You only have like the fourth option there. It's like pay. That's also why some people will say like, no, we're never going to pay. It's not that black and white. There's also the discussions I normally have. It's about 256 types of gray. Then digital operational resiliency testing, proactively identifying weaknesses. Technical support we have for that, like professional services, the solution architects with like best practices, but also the Veeam cybersecure. And now we added towards that one the data resilience maturity model. I won't go into detail for those. Might be a next topic for the future, but those are also helping in making sure that the digital operational resiliency testing is not just a checkbox feature, is making sure that you are resilient, but that you can also prove that and can test it. ICT third-party risk management, and we're going to focus on that particular part about organizational and product safety. How are we operating as Veeam? How do we make sure that Veeam as an organization is safe, but also Veeam, the products itself, are safe to be used by you in that supply chain? Then we have like information intelligence. So that's also why we do these kind of webinars.
Brent,
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
your sound is dying.
My sound is dying.
Yeah, the microphone sometimes sounds like you're underwater, but I'm sure you're not.
No, I'm not. Even have like a
Seems to be
backup.
better. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep it close. So, security best practices. Veeam Cybersecure with techniques, tactics, and procedures there. That's why Copeware, like every quarter, will do an update to people in that Veeam Cybersecure program. But let's focus on the fourth one, ICT third-party risk management, because that's also about supply chain, organizational and product safety. Better, Lucas, sound-wise?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for making sure. So that's one of those statements I always do: to be or not to be compliant. And people will say, "Yeah, we're not in DORA, we're not a financial institute, or we're not on the NIS2 because we're not a critical infrastructure." But there's a meaningful distinction between legally bound and practically bound. Legally bound because of law. That could be if you're on like a financial institute in DORA or in NIS2 and some other regulation. But we are all most likely bound through contracts. That's also why we focus heavily on making sure that we can help any organization that are legally bound in like NIS2 or DORA. So organizational safety. It's about security measures, security standards, how we follow them, audits and penetration testing, sensitive data handling, SLA security and uptime, third-party risk management, notifications, and of course, security training. So let's zoom in. Security measures against data breach. So what kind of security measures are in place to protect against data breaches and cyber attacks? We have the Global Information Security Team. It's based in the United States. It's led by our Chief Information Security Officer, Gil Vega, and he has 17 dedicated members there. The team has implemented and maintained security program aligned to industry frameworks like ISO, NIST, and others. And this program is certified annually by third parties for like the ISO 27000K in the different programs there, but also like the SOC 2 Type 2. And as part of this program, Veeam has established an incident response plan. So from that program, incident response plan, we have a dedicated incident response team that will react and execute a remediation plan in response to any detected unauthorized access to our information systems or databases. Yes, Veeam utilizes a formal incident response plan complete with evaluation escalation procedures. It's not just, okay, who should I call? That's normally my part, but it is also about how you evaluate afterwards, but also escalate to different levels there. And as part of that program, um, we have that dedicated incident response team. And by having a dedicated incident response team, that's what I normally call like the digital emergency workers. If something pops up, normally for like clearing a building, we all have those emergency workers on staff. Like every quarter, you're out in the open, sometimes with coffee, sometimes in the rain, because that's their part and it's their exercise they have to do. That's also why we have a dedicated team that have not just awareness training, but also exercises about, okay, what would happen? How would you react to that one? So do we also comply with security standards? Yes. But there are two different definitions there. So we have like compliant and we have like certified. These are just a few because we have a lot more, and I didn't have more space on that slide, but I will go deeper in that on into the next slides. So compliant like the HIPAA, GDPR, because you can't be certified there, but you should be compliant, right? And also certifications like the ISO 27001, but also SOC 2 Type 2. And if you look through let me change my, I don't know if I have pointer. Yeah, I have a pointer. Oh, there we go. Laser point. If you look at the GIS team, Global Information Security Team, we have like two different distinctions there. We have Bill Gamsa's team. Oh, hold on. Let me go back. We have Bill Gamsa's team, and they are doing cybersecurity and threat management. And you will say, okay, sounds interesting. What's in there? So that's cyber threat intelligence, insider threats, vulnerability governance, incident detection and response, for instance. But they also do digital forensics. And now it's getting interesting because that's more in my wheelhouse. They're also doing like red team and penetration testing. But that's penetration testing not on our software, it's on our infrastructure, making sure that we as Veeam are safe. But also threat hunting, purple teaming, security reference architectures, for instance, security requirements, security tool selection. So also the tools we're using internally to protect ourselves, they are the ones that are going through it, doing like due diligence for that one. Product application security testing, but also internal application security testing. And last but certainly not least, they run the bug bounty. So that's a responsible disclosure program for hackers out there that could make some money if they disclose in a formal way through the big bounty. And then we have the other team led by Courtney Elder, and she's leading the Security Governance Risk and Compliance team, or as we always say, GRC. What do they do? And they are more into like the compliancy and like the soft part in that one, if I may say it. Information security program governance, security policy and standards management, security awareness and engagement, security training, for instance, third party risk management, that's a good one, security control monitoring, exception management, security certifications, and I'll also come back to that one because that's also interesting for you as a customer or as a partner. Customer security questionnaires. We get a lot of questions, especially with all those laws popping up through our local teams about are you willing to disclose A, B, or C around those particular laws. And we have a streamlined process for that one. Security risk management itself, but also, and last not, but certainly not least, business continuity management for Veeam itself. And making sure that we also are As I always say, practice what you preach. That's also exactly what's in that particular bucket, business continuity management. So, practical steps to levels compliance. How does it help you to protect your data? We have the Veeam Trust Center. And in the Veeam Trust Center, you will see all the compliance we have in place. If you go to that link, veeam.com/companies/trustcenter.nl, and it will look something like this. And as you can see, there will be like show the certificate for NIST, for instance, but also show access to the compliance portal. So let's do that. Let's click that one. You will go to Pro Partner. You will see an NDA. That NDA you have to scroll down before this box, accept the non-disclosure agreement, is able to be ticked. And as soon as that is able to be ticked, you can just tick it to comply with it and then go for the next one. And then it will show you the following. And as you can see, there are already a lot of certifications in there. And you can download the details behind it. You can download the certificate itself. This is about building trust, but also showing you, okay, this is how we operate. This is how we have our internal system. This is how software is being built. This is making sure that you can show to other people, stakeholders in your organization, how is Veeam behaving in that part? Do they have compliance tests? Do they have other things in play? And yes, we do. And that's also why you can just go in there, download it, look for the details, and make sure that those are the ones that normally a risk manager will ask about. Or if you have your own CISO on staff, he or she will ask for those particular certificates because that helps them determine in their whole supply chain which of those shackles in the supply chain, and we are one of them most likely, is secure or is a risk for them. So it's about risk management. Okay, where in the shackles in the chain do I have to focus more on? Who isn't already up a particular level for protecting? So building trust through compliance. I will let this one build up. There we go. And then I will zoom in a little bit for that. So we have like the quality management system. Ensures a systematic approach to managing processes and continuous improvement, forming the base for all the other certifications we have on top of that. Because if you look for information security and privacy, you will see ISO 27000, information security management. You will see privacy information management itself. So there's 27701. Never heard about that one before. Now I was even drilling down on that one. But also like cloud security controls. And on top of that one, and connected to that one, protection of personal data in the cloud. This is really interesting and also particularly came into play for us as Veeam because we launched Veeam Data Cloud. On top of that, ISO 22301 business continuity management. Then you will see that we will switch over to like industry specific compliancy, like the HIPAA, DODIN APL, and others. And then from like government critical infrastructure compliance, you will see common criteria, the FIPS, CISA, Secure by Design Pledge, what we did, and also how we are operating there. The CISA Secure Software Development Attestation. I will zoom into that one on the other part about product safety, but also Trade Agreements Act Compliancy, TAA. And you'll see on top of that, there are even more. It's all about how we operate, how we do our processes, and how we control the information around it. That's also why we have like a software bill of materials. It's available online. It's not fully filled yet, but we're almost there to have like the full list for all our products, all libraries that we are using in the particular parts and different software types. But also independent verification and validation, for instance, by CACI. And that's for a lot of people an unknown vendor or organization. But they're doing, for instance, for the US, they're doing a revamp of the IT for with a contract value of like 60 billion, I think. They make sure that our code, our Veeam code, is safe. So they will run through the code, they will stamp it, they will check if there's no backdoor, they will check if there are libraries that shouldn't be there, or we have libraries in place that should already have been replaced because those were marked not safe anymore. And on top of that, you will see Trust and Assurance SOC 2 Type 2. Give a little bit an easier view, especially tied to like our products or our platform. So the Veeam Data Cloud and the Veeam Data Platform, but also Veeam Custom, for instance. And as you can see, there's also work to be done. So there's a roadmap behind it. And like every month, I'm checking in on that one, and there's more and more added towards it, or being updated or added as an extra on top of it. And I think that's a good thing. That's also where a lot of those dollars we invest go into this, making sure that we are and have the security industry certificates that we should need, and that also builds trust towards other stakeholders in your organization. Any questions so far, Lucas?
Not a question. That was just a phrase
Remark?
in the chat, but I answered that already. So we're good to go right here.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
still have a lot of ground to cover. So, so this is 2 or 3, and there's only like the organizational safety, right? So audits and penetration testing. That's also one of those questions I often get about, do you do penetration testing? Yes, we do. Oh, can you give me like the results for Veeam backend replication? No, that's different. That's an application security test. That's not a penetration test. Penetration testing is about the infrastructure, your infrastructure, and in this case, our infrastructure. It's being done uh, by a third party like every year, sometimes even twice a year, but normally it's on an annual basis in Q4 of each year. Uh, Let me go to the next one. Yeah, sensitive data handling. So we handle a lot of data, right? Data, a data classification standard is in place and which is reviewed and approved annually. This standard outlines the encryption requirements, for instance, for database on sensitivity and, of course, like the method of transmission. That's also why, but it's like a sidestep in a product, you can do like encryption in flight, but also at rest. This is different because this is about the sensitive data handling internally for Veeam. But that's kind of the comparison you can make. Like, okay, you don't want to transfer data like clear text over a wire because it could be picked up. You don't want to store it in a clear, readable fashion. Because if you have a breach on hand, that will be the first target for anyone. So, how do we assess the security of third-party vendors and partners? Because we're also doing third-party risk management. We're not just a shackle, we are also a chain. Excuse me. So, third-party risk management is required by the corporate information security policy within Veeam. That one is reviewed and approved like annually and communicate to all internal Veeam associates. So we all get an update around that. And the program consists of onboarding, reviewing of third parties, ongoing monitoring. So it's not just onboarding and then it's fire and forget. No, it's like a continuous cycle. So we have ongoing monitoring of all the critical vendors and also annual required security training and policy attestation for all third parties. Anyone that can access the Veeam environment should be compliant. So they have a security training that's mandatory, but also the policy attestation for any of those third parties. And if you look through like those controls that are going through, it's important that it's security training, but it's for all stakeholders internally and externally that are in that same like supply chain delivering through or past. So as an employee, we also get security training. Just finished them last month, and hopefully the rest also finished that one. Otherwise, you get some interesting emails normally. Or, as I've seen already, if you didn't do the mandatory security training, you will be disconnected from the Veeam infrastructure. So you have no access to any systems anymore. That means that you cannot do your job, and that's always a hard thing to go and then say, security. Let's do a ticket. Can I have my clearance and can I have my controls and access back? It's like, no, you didn't do the training, so you have to do the training first. Then you get your controls back and your access. It's for all employees annually, but also for some additional roles, we have different training there. And especially if you're in a critical role, you have more training to do. So, yippee, I have more training to do. But that's also a good thing, as I always say, as a field CTO, we have the right training for the right audience, and that's a good thing. Yep, there we go. Let's go to free. Service level agreement and security uptime. So if you look through Veeam, we have commercial off-the-shelf products, uh, but it doesn't host or store customer data. We did before, or we didn't have that before, but now all of a sudden we also have the Veeam Data Cloud, right? So you see that there's like an uplift and also a change in position there. And let me get that one there because there's also about like severity levels, how we are for production. Is it basic? Is it coming through? Um, and if you look through like basic support that provides like software support services during business hours, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Basic support is included with all products, even if you have like the proof of concept running, so you didn't even buy it, you have like basic support. Normally, the SEs that are doing the proof of concept will be like the first line of contact, but you can also go to like basic support there. But normally
What
you
about
will
the
have like product level support, right? So provide.
Edwin?
Yeah, go ahead.
And sorry to interrupt. What about the
No,
community edition?
sorry.
What about the community edition of the Veeam products?
The community edition is kind of like basic support. It's like an email. You can send in an email and you get support. But also, what I normally say for like community edition, we have communityveeam.com. That's also why we're doing this webinar.
That's why I'm
Uh,
asking, because I think
yeah,
many people write into the communities in the forums, which is great, but we very often refer to the Veeam support, and afterwards they tell us they don't even have a license to have the community edition. That's why I'm asking, but that's a nice thing. Thank you.
yeah. But that's also how we operated from like the beginning. We try to help out. Unfortunately, we have a really supportive community and also a large community, and I'm really proud and also really proud of the ladies for managing that all and building it out. Because especially when you look for like community edition, there's so many people out there that know so much more than even I know about our products. And by just dropping that in the community, you will get an answer often fast, or you will post a question that's so interesting for a lot of people. They are like, okay, hold on. And you will see more and more people jump on it. Because that was a question nobody asked before. It's an interesting topic. Let's go. That's also why we have like service level agreements and security and uptime to also make sure that the right people with the right contract get the right support. But it doesn't mean if you have community, you don't get support at all. And that's a good thing. So anywhere, any place, anytime, you can get some support. Sometimes through different channels, but you can get support there. But also notifications. And if you look in, there are already like built-in notifications. Now I've also seen those notifications like Veeam Data Cloud, and more are being rolled out. Having that notification icon there, but also through email or direct to the customer if it's regarding security incidents. So if something happens within Veeam, people will get an email directed to them if there's a security incident and they are part of the supply chain. So one of the checkers had an issue, and it could be us. You will get an email with all the details and also what you should and should not do, and making sure that we work together to clean the whole chain. And if you look for like the operating system patching. Before we didn't do that, but you see now more and more with also like version 13 coming in, that we're going to roll out like the patches for like the software appliance. Or if you're in VDC, we will do G updates in the background because you're running a software as a service. So more and more is being managed by Veeam if you want. And if there are like critical patches, especially in version 13 now, it will be rolled out. You can delay it, postpone it for like 24 hours, and after that, you are not able to postpone it anymore and will be installed, making sure that those systems are secure and safe in the base. But if you also want to have some other security incident directed to you, because normally it's like the contract owner that's getting that one, so the one that's like doing license management is not often the one that's like in the security team or is the backup admin, and they also want to know if there's something they should be aware of, right? So that's where we have the Veeam security advisories. Those are the same thing that are also going to like the stakeholders or the ones that are on file that are managing licenses. But if you go to veeam.com, knowledge base, you will see there is a tick box for only security advisories. Put in your email and you will see you will get security advisors. Uh, the last one we had like 2 or 3 days ago, if I'm top of my head, the CVE and also a patch for that one. You will get those kind of in this form. Veeam security advisory highlights. There will be CV. There will be interesting. There will also be positioning to a knowledge base article to give you more details and background on that one. So please, if you are um, not receiving those and you would like them, go to veeam.com/knowledgebase.html and select only security advisories or updates for all articles. But it's up to you. So let's switch to product safety, because that first block was about organizational safety, how we keep Veeam safe for ourselves, but also for you. And now it's about product safety. It's about secure coding. It's about vulnerability management, audits and application testing, sensitive data handling, security training, testing before release. So not using you as a guinea pig, but testing before release, as not some other vendors are doing, but also the software bill of materials, right? And if you look through like the secure coding, what secure coding practices do we follow? We follow extensive vulnerability management, a part of, and that's where it comes in again, the secure software development lifecycle. And the secure software development lifecycle (SSDL) is part of the whole framework around it. That's the whole vulnerability management. It's performed by Veeam itself, but also an independent third-party organization before being released for general availability. So Veeam is part of the CVE program, and we also regularly publish known vulnerabilities. As soon as we get something in, we have a patch, there will be a calculation for the CV, and you will get an update there. So Veeam's product safety there, secure coding. As I said, the secure software development lifecycle, so the SSDLC. Tied to that is the secure software development framework, the SSDF. Whew, a lot of acronyms, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. Because if you go to like the framework, it's about preparing the organization, but also protecting the software itself. From there, produce well secured software. So secure by design rings a bell. And respond to vulnerabilities, because if something is happening and there's, for instance, a bug bounty through HackerOne that's been mentioned with a proof of concept to show what happens if you do particular things. As soon as we can establish that there is a problem and there is kind of a vulnerability, sometimes people will send in vulnerabilities, and if we test it, we don't see it. And then if we dive deeper into that, means that there was something wrong in their infrastructure, most likely. And we sometimes even can pinpoint it. But we always take these serious, because sometimes you get something and it's like, nah, that couldn't be. That's too easy. And then you test it and like, oh yeah, it is a vulnerability, or it can lead to a vulnerability. And by having that in play means that we can also make sure that we do secure coding, that all the code that we produce are secure in the base. And of course, yes, CVEs will pop up. That is for every software vendor out there, but also for hardware vendors. Because if you really look through all the hardware vendors, where are they running? Software on top of that hardware. It's often like embedded in an EEPROM or something like that. But all digital stuff is run through software. And if it's part of hardware and in combination with software, it still is running software. So anyone should have like CVs, but also have vulnerabilities. And that brings me to like vulnerability management. A vulnerability management program is in place aligned to the NIST. And that we did it especially with the NIST because that's like the industry best practice. That's worldwide being adopted, accepted, and people know how that operates because it's like a common language across the board. So it's about remediation of identified vulnerabilities. It's based on the CVSS score and criticality. But it also means that reported to management and communication is on an ongoing basis for compliance because we also need it for our own compliancy. And compliancy also for you, if there's a vulnerability, that you have an insight and also a more deep dive in what is in it for you, or better said, what is the risk for you. So you can take a good look at it and make a decision. And if you look through like the CVEs, I just pulled these, but these are already a little bit older. But as you can see, there are different ones, but there are also a lot of different vendors there where we have CVs. And some vendors will say, we have no CVs. If you really look through the database, we all have CVs because it's code, it's being done by people. And even if you now look through how, for instance, ChatGPT or any of the other AIs are building code, even in that code, there are vulnerabilities. Some of those vulnerabilities will be hidden for like 40 years. Remember the Log4j? That's one of those things. Then all of a sudden, someone figures out something or does something that is not like how it should be, and then all of a sudden, something opens up. That's where CVs pop in. So, how does the CV work? We have like a partnership with HackerOne for that one. HackerOne investigates for us. If it's valid, so there's a proof of concept that they can establish that there is like likely a vulnerability, they will send it to us to look through. There will be an automatic CVSS score calculation that is always a pre-scoring. Sometimes pre-scoring can be like a 10, but afterwards it was like a 7 because then they really drilled down, they run through and really could see what the vulnerability was about. So those scores will be adjusted. Sometimes also a CV comes in like the range of 3 or 4, and then all of a sudden it's being bumped up to like a 9.9 because it opens up something in the background that was not detected yet until we ran it ourselves, or better said, the team application security team, and they found, oh, hold on, that is like door number one, but door number one is leading to door number 26, and 26 is much more of criticality. And that's also why I would recommend anyone out there don't just focus on like CVEs 8 and above. Also look through the ones that are like 4 or 5 or 6. Because normally those CVEs are not being patched. And those are like the stepping stone for a lot of hacking groups to get into the infrastructure and from there propagate into a higher one or find something that hasn't been patched where there was a vulnerability of like a score of 8 to 10. So Veeam's product safety there. Excuse me. So how often and how are security audits and application security tests performed? If you look through, like for instance, the Veeam 27, oh, yeah, wrong button. Sorry about that. If you look through the ISO 27K certificate, but also the SOC 2 Type 2, this is always being rectified by a third party. So on an annual basis, in Q4 of each year or Q1, depending on how the time frame is, additionally, a third party conducts application security tests. So not penetration test, no, application security test. But it could also be per release or on annual basis. So it's depending on the life cycle and the release life cycle of a particular product. So sometimes you will have a Q2 application security test because we just launched something there. And sometimes if it's like the mandate or like the maintenance on it, it's like every year in Q4. So sensitive data handling is kind of the same in organizational safety, but this is done for product safety. And also for product safety, we have the data classification standard in place. It's being reviewed, but also approved annually by the GIS team and by senior leadership team. This standard outlines the encryption requirements for data based on sensitivity, but also method of transmission. And that's also what I already referred to before. So how do we test before release? And as you can see, it's already a long tree there. So we have the standards, including technical vulnerability management, and from there we go down. So we do vulnerability and penetration testing. It's all based on standards there. But sometimes also we do some like manual, some are automated already, vulnerability search and scanning. We're using different tools for that one, but also technical reviews, including internal penetration testing. But that's often called like the white box method. So we will build an infrastructure with the particular code, with some components attached to it, and see how the results are. Are there any discovered abnormalities, for instance? There will be evaluation about it. And if there's something found, it will be addressed at that moment in time and patched, or better said, the code will be reviewed, rebuilt, and tested again. We also review the code, the source code itself, to identify and detect threats, for instance, but also weaknesses in the system code during the different stages of the system development lifecycle. So the SDLC. Um, we use specific, I can't go into detail on that one, but we have a combination of source code reviewing, system testing, exception testing, and some compliance review to identify errant coding practices, because all engineers kind of produce their own code, but also have a different way of coding. Some have the same, but there are also different ways of coding through it. So we're looking through, we have an exception system there, but also a compliance review system to identify that. But also making sure that there's not being like a backdoor being built in one of the products just for fun, or like an Easter egg. That's what we try to prevent in those particular things. Um, if you look through the dedicated application security team, they have quite a lot of interesting tools to their disposal to look through the coding, but also get like context around the coding, and also how particular code leads to other code. And that's during the planning and the design stages. So you will see product management there, you will see development there, you will see application security teams identifying, for instance, security issues that needs to be addressed in upcoming features. And the development stage includes various procedures to provide security, but also consistency, for instance, of the source code. And the development team uses, I think, static application security testing, yes, SAST, tools to analyze the source code, but also find those security flaws at the beginning already, potential problems before compilation. And if we can find those, we can just push them out, making sure that we have that analysis ready before the next version is on your desk. Security training is kind of the same for all the Veeam staff, but because this is about how to secure code, making sure that any of the engineers know about how to create code that's already secure in the base, secure by design, making sure that they have that. And there's also additional role-based testing, for instance, for the application security team. Dennis, for that part, they have even more testing, or testing, training, and then testing about the training if they know how to operate it. And there's also building their um, background, but also getting them more access to tools to help them do their job properly, but also be aware about some of the things that are not visible at the surface. In software bill of materials, we have a bill of materials is not fully this expected Q3 2024, but it's now Q3 2025 because of like version 13 coming out, but we're continuously monitoring thereafter. So making sure that anything that's been added, been changed, been modified, altered, or removed is also reflected in the software bill of materials there. And if you look through how we did like organizational and product safety, this is about okay because we got that compliancy, and you've seen like the team of Courtney Elder and Jose Mendoza is one of those stars in that one, going through like okay which certification should we have in that. That's also why we kind of have the pillars of secure by design. So looking through like the governance, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and also the different features that are falling under those pillars for you, because it makes it easy if you can give this to like a security team because they know about the security cyber framework 2.0, and they're like, oh, hey, interesting. I thought they only did like protect as Veeam. They do much more, and that can really help shed the light on what's really happening behind the shield within Veeam, right? So from that into uh, different laws and regulations, it's different laws, but there are so many similarities. And if you look and you know data resilience, the five pillars we have: data intelligence, data security, data portability, data recovery, and data backup. If you just put all those different laws over it, it's all about resiliency, to be honest. They have different articles, different wording for that one, but we can all manage through like those five pillars or dimensions, as we call them, for data resiliency. And I think on that one, I'm on my last slide. I think in time. Lucas.
All right, I think we don't have questions in the chat. I didn't see any questions. In case you have questions, just let us know. You can, I think you should have the right to unmute yourself, so just feel free. Put it in the chat, put it in the mic.
Yeah. Any other questions
Yeah,
about security outside of this topic? Hey, we're now here, so
exactly. And we have a few minutes left, so yeah,
yeah, we're perfectly
just
on
feel
time.
free. Yeah, I think what everyone is looking forward to is the final release of V13, since this has another kind of, let's call it, shared responsibility model, because Veeam will take care of the operation system patching, and I think, because I'm in the European market and my customers are German, what will be a point of discussion, and I guarantee you that, is the fact that you can't postpone updates or pause updates for, let's say, a year, because many German customers, I see many Veeam systems in the field that haven't been patched, at least when you talk about the operating system, for a year, for 2 years. That would be all right in case you have an isolated environment, in case you have security rules, hardening, and all that stuff. But customers who don't care about patching don't often care about security as well. So that's kind of hand in hand, you know. Um,
Yeah, to get into that topic, Lucas,
yeah,
it's more for they're two different breeds, and that's also why you see silos there. Because if you look at the backup admin or like an IT infrastructure admin, they will just say like, "Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it." And then I see some scripts screens popping up like my infrastructure is up for 1,000 days. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake. There we go. And the security team is like, no, 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 no. There's a security patch. It has to do, and we have to do it now. While operations have something like, no, I have to get those trucks out, so I'm not going to patch it now. So that's those three different dimensions that have to start working together. That's also why we have like, you can postpone it for like 24 hours, so it doesn't fire up directly as some others
yeah.
do, but you cannot postpone it like indefinitely anymore, and that's a good thing because then we really have to discuss about there's a security, it's highly vulnerable, opening a door you shouldn't have. Let's patch it, but also make sure that it fits into the process within your organization.
The idea is, and me as a consultant, I'm in the field talking to customers and trying um, to change their mindset a little bit, because they're talking about backups. In my opinion, it's not about backups, because every tool, if we are honest, including Veeam and every other tool in the market, um, backup is not the challenge.
So,
The challenge is data resiliency. The challenge is recoverability. And handling data because you can take the data backed up and run malware scans and all that stuff, secure restores, and you can run sure backups and all that stuff. But I don't see customers using this because they don't know the functions, and B, they take backup as a backup, and they don't see this in the cybersecurity change. They don't see backup within the data resilience context, and I think that's the point because they see I have a backup, I'm safe, but can you recover? And how do you secure your backup? Because having a backup in place that might not even have a password, that's, I think, not, we are in 2025. And that's a huge challenge, especially for the smaller customers, especially in the German market, because that's what I have experience in. And that's the point. And moving to an appliance and taking some options from the customers might sound hard for someone who's not into it, but I think it's the right thing to force customers into that chain. And I think that's the more important thing than another GUI. And of course, we have a dark mode. That's a nice thing. In the
I hate the dark mode.
V13, you hate dark mode.
Yeah, I like the white mode because I'm from the
Yeah,
dark side.
that's that. I think having the dark mode will make many people happy. So that's I don't think that, for example, uh, a Cohesity has a dark mode, but Commvault doesn't have a dark mode, so customers will have that. That's another thing. But moving to the appliance and making life easier by having less choices, that's basically a good thing, but customers will have to get used to it. And there is no migration path from V12 to V13 if you move to the appliance. That's another point you have to mention because I think it's about the Postgres database infrastructure that's a little bit different on Rocky.
Are we
Should
alone
be
in
right.
space? I will just say not yet.
Not yet. That's true. I think yeah, that's the point. But basically, there's no migration path, so you have to think on maybe having new designs. And on that point, if you move to another infrastructure and to another design, you can implement security from scratch, but that takes longer. So I have many customers that tell me I need one day, let's say 4 hours to set up a new Veeam infrastructure, and I completely disagree because it takes like a week and a half. If you talk about documentation, because they have certifications from the company they have to run through. So um, that's a huge chain. I think that's the best word for that. Yeah.
Yes, and if you don't test your backups, you don't know what the restore times are. You don't have a backup.
And many customers, they don't care about those values, and they don't even declare the values. One of the questions I get asked most is, "What do you recommend for an RTO?" And I can't declare this for a company. I can tell them, listen, I have customers with like 48 hours. That's quite common for the smaller market. 24 hours, 12 hours, but that depends on the companies and on the criteria you have to fulfill. And that's the point. That's individual for the companies.
And there are
But
business
basically,
criteria. So yeah.
yeah, that's it. Chris, I saw your request. Thank you for that. I will write that down because I already wrote that down for the next meeting. That will definitely be a point on the agenda. Thank you. So, if anyone else has some input or some feedback on this one or some topics for the upcoming events, just put it in the chat. Unmute yourself. I think we can spare another minute for that. That's all right.
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Lucas. Was
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
very much, Edwin. All right, so